Welcome. Today we're going to turn this boring old logo into something quite special. And to accomplish this, we're going to be using the trusty Pentium 3 with Windows 98. Now, depending on your installation of Windows, you should find a logo.sys file. And if we open this up in MS Paint, we'll find this is actually just a regular bitmap. Well, there's a little bit special to it, but we'll look at that later. And there we go. It's got a bit of a weird resolution, 320 by 400, but we can just go and edit this like you'd expect any other bitmap. So let's just do GFG was ear, because that's probably what a lot of kids would have done if they found this out for themselves on one of the school computers. And with our masterpiece just about done, let's try rebooting the machine to see what it would look like. And after admiring our handiwork, the first thing we notice is the fact that it's no longer animating that bar along the bottom. And that is because when we saved it out in Paint, it overwrote some of the important information that makes it all work. But instead of fixing this up, let's create our brand new masterpiece instead. And for this, I'm going to be using PaintShop Pro 7, because pretty much everyone had this or PaintShop Pro 4 installed on their machine, because they had the shareware version, which was probably on day 465 of a 30-day trial. Now what I've got here is a low color version of my logo without any text. So let's add the Goldfish on Games text to it, making sure it's roughly the right font and the right size. Yep, I think that will do nicely. The next thing is to resize this to that really wonky resolution of 320 by 400. Yep, it has to be taller than wider. From what I've read, Microsoft actually supported this resolution on a small subset of machines that had these taller than wider displays, and so all the boot logos had to support that as well. But when the image gets displayed on a standard 4x3 monitor, it gets squished down so it mostly looks correct. Our next task is to put a gradient fill through the text. The main reason for this is it tends to look a lot better when animated. So after setting the number of colours up to maximum, let's create a gradient fill. Now by default we've got a blue to green. Now I want to go from a dark blue all the way up to a dark green, but I want to have some highlights in the middle. So let's put light blue, set up a light green, yep, and then finally a dark green. I think that's going to work quite nicely. With that done, it's a simple case of just using the fill tool to then apply it to all the white text. Now, this shouldn't take long at all. Oops, revert. And then the second line. And done. For this to work, we actually have to reduce the number of colours. So I want the total of colours in this image to be 32. Which, hey, that doesn't look too bad, though it's not quite as smooth with the transition across the palette as I was hoping. And with that done, I'm actually going to cheat slightly and increase its colours back up to 256. There is a reason for this, and we'll get onto that in just a minute. And to work around a few limitations of the tool, I'm going to save out a palette file, which I also need to do to our main image. Now this might seem like a lot of faffing about, but if we open up the original Windows 98 logo, we can see why. All the colours from that bar are actually at the very end of its palette. That's right, this works by using a colour cycle animation. That is, it's animated by moving the colours around the palette rather than doing anything directly to the image. And this is why I decided to do something very similar with my image, with the gradients going through it. But now I need to move the palette colours from the beginning of the palette to the end. And for that, we're going to use that most complex of tools, Notepad. Slightly more modern art tools will probably allow you to do all this stuff inside the UI, but for now, let's just use Notepad. So my plan is to copy those 32 colours that I created and stick them at the end of the other palette. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward, and thankfully these palette files are simply a list of numbers. They're just RGB values, so I can just jump to the bottom, go up 31 colours, and then paste mine in. And with that done, we can save it, and then load that palette in. And there we can see those colours are now at the bottom end of this palette. And after a bit of fiddling around with the main image, we can then copy over our text onto it. And yep, there we go. And now we just need to set the palette back again. And with all that done, what's there left to do? Well, save it, and then we can try it out. And instead of rebooting and hoping that it shows up, I'm instead going to use a program called Logo View, which, as it says on the tin, allows us to view logos. Now all you have to do is point at the file and hey, there we go. That is the file that we just worked on. But, as we can tell, there is no animation going on. What's wrong? Well, it turns out you have to set a couple of extra values into the file. And to do that, we're going to have to use another program. Yep, it's time to break out the hex editor. Now we'll use this program to set two values. The first one is where in the palette our color cycle animation will start. The second one is the type of animation we'll be using. So we have 31 colors, which means we have to do 256 minus 31, which equals 225. But we can't just drop that number in because we have to work in hex. So it's FF minus 1F, which equals E1. So let's put that in. The second number is either a 0 or a 1. If it's 0, then it just uses a standard looping animation. If it's a 1, it uses a ping-ponging animation. So let's just set this to 0 for now, because I think that would look best. And with that done, let's save this and then try loading this up a second time to see how it looks. So let's use Logo View again to check it out. Well, I can honestly say it's animating. It may not look right, but it is animating. So let's just bask in all its glory for a second, shall we? Okay, that's enough. Let's see if we can fix this up and have it looking a little better, shall we? As it turns out, you can still find LogoSys editors if you look around the dustier parts of the internet, such as this one, the XRX Logo utility, which allows us to open up these files and mess around with them. And with our logo loaded, we can already tell it's picked up the fact that we have 31 colors. We can even test the animation right from the GUI. But even better, we can actually drag the palette colors around inside the palette. And in a time-consuming, if not particularly brain-taxing experience, you can easily drag these colors back and forth to try and give you that rough sort of gradient that we were looking for. And with that done, we can now go test out this new animation. And as we can see, hey, that looks a hell of a lot better than it did before. There's still a few issues here and there, but if we went in and edited the file, we could probably get this to be much smoother. And from this UI, we can actually even see what it looked like if we set it to ping pong versus looping. For what this is meant to be, I'm pretty happy with it, and so I'm not going to do any more editing. But that's not to say you can't get really creative with these boot screens. Here's some I made back in the day. Well, okay, this one is pretty bad, I know, but I feel this is the best place to leave this video. So until next time, I've been the Gouldfish, that was some unique boot logos, and this was Gouldfish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, you can use all the various buttons you can find on the screen, or you can leave me a comment in the box below. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.